Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 5 stories for you from the Tales from Tech Support subreddit. Make sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit that like button. Otherwise, I'm eating all your cookies. Hey, while we're at it, what is your favorite kind of cookie? If you're on YouTube, comment down below, and if you're on Spotify, you can comment on the podcast there as well. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from No Wild Stuff 192. Oh! That moment when the light bulb finally goes on, when the clouds finally part, the sun shines through and illuminates the wreckage this fool has wrought. And they realize that yes, in fact, you have been warning them about this the whole time, but they didn't listen. Here's a story about that. I've shared a story on this sub before, so I'll give you a quick recap what I'm about. One-man IT show, medium-sized, privately owned retail business, backwater area, tech literacy around these parts is worse than average. The relevant IT skill in this story is my proficiency in a certain ERP software. I'm a certified developer and a non-certified but de facto technical consultant for it. Now, probably the most common ask of a developer for this ERP is custom reports. Click a button on a menu, input screen pops up, fill it out, and click OK, and the ERP generates a report based on your input. Might be sales, might be purchasing history, might be some fancy cross-reference of projected inventory versus past inventory counts. Enter M, head of sales. M is amiable enough. He is the senior sales rep in the company after all, but he's problematic in that he's a sales guy. Solely focused on moving as much product out the door as possible, and absolutely willing to inconvenience others to do so. This guy has a reputation for breaking the rules to get a sale to go through, to the degree that accounts receivable has his user flagged, and will double check his orders to make sure he didn't do anything funny. As my skills with this ERP developed, I learned it all here on the job. I dedicated quite a bit of time to hunting down the little exploits in the system he had figured out and fixing them. For example, the guy was circumventing customer credit limits and then playing dumb about it. There's some glitch in the system, it just worked. Now, some of you may be wondering how this guy wasn't fired for that last bit, especially once yours truly figured out how he was doing it, and that he was doing it on purpose without a shadow of a doubt. Seems pretty bad, right? Well, no. The CEO wouldn't fire him because he sells a lot of crap. He gets away with a lot because he sells a lot of crap. This place is a clown show. I'm 400 words in and I haven't gotten to the point yet. I blame caffeine and not having any work friends. M asked me to take a certain detailed sales report and condense it down to one line. Total sales per department. A perfectly reasonable ask. True, he could pull the detailed report into Excel and in about 7 seconds get his summary with a pivot table, but this is still a reasonable ask since he might want to look at it a few times per day. Now, best way to go about this is to copy the detailed report's guts and just have the final output summarized. Might not be the most efficient query since there are loads of details getting pulled that ultimately won't get displayed, but working this way guarantees that the reports will be consistent. And I've had problems in the past building things from scratch that didn't agree with the existing reports, and then needing to hunt down the reason. I coded the report and tested it. Seemed to work just fine. I told M the report was available and he could use it, but to pay attention the first few times he uses it, because I didn't know the exact parameters he uses in the input screen. So he needs to make sure he's running it exactly the way he would run the older detailed report. 3 or 4 months later, he calls me, "The report is wrong." What do you mean? I mean, it's showing a number higher than it should. When I run the detailed report, it shows a lower number, and you said they should always match. I did say that. Did you change anything in the input screen? No, just different dates. Did you change anything ever on the input screen? Did you look at it to see what's on there? No. Look at it right now. See the little checkbox with the words, "Don't include drafts" next to it? What does that do? I rub my temple. It makes the report not include drafts, M, exactly as it says, and exactly the way it works on the old detailed report. Oh. I should stress, this wasn't some quaint internal report. He had been reporting sales up the chain this whole time using this report and didn't heed my warning. He'd paid commissions and bonuses based on it and had collected bonuses himself based on it. There was a bit of a commotion after this came to light. To his credit, he didn't try to shift the blame to me, building the report wrong. But from then on, he did start cross-checking the numbers before making any decisions based on them. He still is a major source of issues. Guy's got a whole bunch of business rules I put in place specifically to deal with his nonsense. As far as management is concerned, if I can block something using the system, then the problem is solved. They have made their peace with this guy's impetuousness. Sorry, no super satisfying classic Reddit and everyone clapped comeuppance this time. He effed up, got embarrassed, everybody sort of shrugged, and were like, yep, classic M, and moved on. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called JMF Hubby. It says, he sounds like the kind of guy whose shenanigans will bring the whole company down. Physically, financially, legally, or some combination of those. OP responded and said, at some point he might have been that guy, but his system permissions are really restricted these days. I changed nothing in the system based on his request without someone else signing off on it. Once, after finding out that he had given his login info to his staff, I told him that if he gives his password away again, I'll restrict his permissions so badly he'll need to open a ticket for the toilet to flush after he takes a piss. Another commenter down below called Gemini27 said, the kind of guy who highlights the need for having tooltip pop-ups or what is this mouse over links next to every tick box, giving details of how it works in that specific job environment. Backwater safety nets indeed. OP responded and said he wouldn't read them. At risk of making this into a DAE rant, I cannot tell you how many issues would have been prevented if people would just gosh darn read. Not the manual even, that's too much to ask. Just last week I finished a pretty complicated automation for a department and spent 45 minutes writing an email in which I laid out the circumstances wherein it will and won't work. I communicate well in writing. It's a point of pride for me. The department head responded with, we don't understand, come here and explain it. I bet she didn't even try to read it. Ugh. I feel with that kind of user, it's only a matter of time before they shoot themselves in the foot bad enough that they're going to have to be fired, or charged, or a combination of both. OP, I'm sure you have a lot more on your plate, and all the time you're spending trying to wrangle this guy in is taking away from other things you need to do. I hope for your sake that he gets removed sometime soon. Hopefully before he causes a catastrophe. This story comes to us from an Eldritch writer, a tale of intentional incompetence. So I work in IT on a state level, meaning I'm part of the IT department that does support for my state's government offices. One of the areas I specifically handle are Teams phones. Yesterday, we got a ticket put in that this office has a Teams desk phone that's not working. They got the phone and account a year ago. Either they never signed in on the phone in all this time, or someone changed the password and never told anyone. Whichever is the answer is anyone's guess because getting anything from this office is like pulling teeth. But I digress. Me and a coworker tested the account to make sure it was just a password issue. Got a new password set up, tested it on our end to make sure it works, and then we explained the problem to the user, gave her the new password along with the sign-in email, and asked her to test it out. Now, I'm a firm believer that no one working an office job is so incompetent they can't sign into a phone when all you have to do is put in an email and a password. This lady was intent on proving me wrong. Ignored all my attempts throughout the day and following day to find out if they're having any other issues. It was only about 4 p.m. today that she finally responded, freaking out because she still can't get into the phone and needs someone to come down here for her quickly. We already confirmed the login credentials are correct. We're not sending someone across town just to sign into a phone for someone. So I sent her the phone setup documents, told her again how you sign into the phone, and if typing on the phone is difficult, understandable, the keypad on the phone is small, easy to do typos, then this is how you sign into the phone via your computer. She still kept freaking out on me because she already has these documents. She needs someone to come down here so they can use their phone. They pay my agency to do this, and so we should be sending someone down. They don't. They do not pay my department for support. Don't know why she thinks she's forking over money. I gave up. I drove down across town to her office, despite this making me late for my second job as a result. And guess what? The phone signs in just fine. Her issue wasn't that she couldn't sign in. She openly admitted that since we updated the password yesterday, she did not even attempt to sign into the phone, despite us specifically asking her to sign into it to make sure it's working on her end. I wanted to pull my hair out. I came all this way because she literally could not be bothered to sign into the phone herself. Literally, all she had to do was tap the sign in button and type in the email and password we gave her. That's all. But she didn't even want to try. It's so frustrating. And she kept complaining because somehow this is our fault. Update, I talked to my manager about it this morning. She ain't too thrilled about this either. Apparently this gal has done this sort of crap in the past for other issues. Long story short, closed the ticket with a note that the issue was that she refused to sign in herself. As per manager, our team will not provide on-site support for her incidents anymore. Unless it's genuinely necessary, of course. Jumping down to the comments on this one, there's one from a user called NoAlternative2913. It says, report her to HR or her supervisor? OP responded and said, I didn't have time to do any of that, as I quite literally had to go straight home when I was done with her, so I could change and get to my other job. But I do plan on bringing this up to my manager tomorrow morning. Another commenter down below called Captain Punisher said, that's when you log back out and make her do it. Watch her very intently and treat her like a child, guiding her through every step. If she says, I know how to do it, reply, then why did I have to come out here? OP responded and said, a part of me wanted to, but I was already stressed out and didn't want to deal with her any longer than I already had. I feel like when OP goes back into work, they should be a little devious and reset the password again. And when they put in a new ticket, they can say, well, I was just there and I showed you how to do it in person, so feel free to escalate this to your manager and tell them why you can't log in yourself. This story comes to us from Bester Friend, the mystery of the missing desktop icons. In my years of tech support, I've seen users do some baffling things, but this one takes the cake. A frantic employee called in claiming all their desktop icons had vanished into thin air. They swore up and down that they hadn't touched a thing. I remotely connected to their computer, and sure enough, the desktop was as empty as a politician's promise. Oddly, the files were all still there in their directories. I checked the usual culprits, view settings, auto-arrange, even the recycle bin, you never know. Everything was in order. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted it, a minuscule speck in the bottom right corner. Intrigued, I clicked and dragged a selection box over it, and lo and behold, a swarm of microscopic icons appeared. Somehow, the user had managed to select all their desktop icons, resize them to the tiniest possible dimension, and shove them in the corner. After resizing and rearranging the icons to their rightful place, I explained to the user what had happened. They were bewildered and insisted they had no idea how it occurred. Just another day in the trenches of tech support, where the simplest problems often have the quirkiest solutions. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Magic Bigfoot. It says, if I recall correctly, this happens when the control key is held or gets stuck momentarily, wireless keyboard for example, and the scroll wheel is used. Very annoying. I have disabled this feature through AHK, as I like where I have put my desktop icons very much, thank you. Does anybody else feel like this is something that happens when you walk away from your computer and forget to lock it? It sounds like a prank that somebody would have played on me back in my call center days. Although my favorite one back then was to take a screenshot of the desktop, then take all of their icons, put it into a folder, and set that screenshot as their desktop background. Of course, then you would hide the taskbar so that even when they tried to click on the start button, nothing would work. It was absolutely evil and wonderful at the same time. This story comes to us from IBN Fozzie. Camera isn't working. Had a ticket from an exec come in because the camera didn't work. Well, actually looking back, there were several tickets over almost a couple years. Most of them were closed because he just never replied. However, the last ticket resulted in my tech saying it couldn't be fixed remotely and to send a replacement laptop, which was escalated to me to assign. I went ahead and authorized it because it's a senior employee and his laptop was a whole 2 years old and not box fresh. Laptop returns all come to me, so I can make sure they are processed correctly and wiped and sent to eCycle if needed. Laptop had a few scratches, but nothing out of the ordinary. Opened it up and saw the issue in a microsecond. The gosh darn shutter was closed. Logged in as the local admin and it worked fine. The laptop was shipped to him with it closed, so he never had it working. Note, as the IT director, I never look at tickets unless they are escalated to me for purchasing requests or a senior level request for access, etc. Daily tickets my team can handle fine, and the exec never reached out, which is why I didn't realize he was having issues. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called DazCon5. It says, I've had these interactions so many times. My screen is black when I try to use my camera. You have the privacy shutter closed. What? There's a very small slide where your camera is that can block the camera even when it's on. My laptop doesn't have anything like that. Yes, it does. You have model XVY. The slide button is small, but it's there. User fumbles around. No, I don't see. Wait. Okay, the camera's working now. Ends call. Why are people so stupid? I think one thing people in IT might fail to remember is that they deal with tons of laptops and computers and all this tech stuff on a regular basis, but the users deal with whatever you give them. So in this case of the CEO and their camera not working, yeah, it's the only laptop they use and they might not have experience with that kind of thing. So when they have an issue like this, where the camera is quote unquote not working, I can see when they wouldn't think of opening a shutter because they've never had to do it before. If you're the head of tech support, all this means is that you need to add this into your regular troubleshooting so that the people who handle the tickets have it as one of the first steps they do when somebody calls in and says, my camera's not working, it only comes up black. This story comes to us from Miss Hell. I don't want to hang up as it took me so long to join the meeting. Longtime lurker, first time poster. I lurked here for a while for research while I was trying to get into IT. I am now almost a year into an apprenticeship with a great company who pays a proper salary. I have enjoyed all your anecdotes. Anyway, the tale I have is happening right now and I'm trying not to laugh. I'm helping a new starter with some MFA over Teams while he is at home, but he struggled to even get on the call in the first place. I think we got the MFA sorted, but there's an issue with opening a shared folder on his personal device, so I asked a colleague to assist. He is free in 20 minutes, but the new starter didn't want to hang up the Teams call, so I muted my mic and turned off my camera. But this guy has left all of his own on, including his screen share, and he's there watching the cricket and chatting away with his wife. So glad it's the cricket and not anything else. I have muted him now, but it really has made me chuckle. OP, this guy watching cricket was probably one of the most tame things you could have seen from somebody who leaves their camera and everything else on. Oh my, I've heard some horror stories about this one of things that you really don't want to see on camera that would get somebody fired instantly. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and give us a rating on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.